Quan Park stood at the edge of the training arena and tried not to shake. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. Around him, creatures from a dozen different worlds prepared for combat. Some had scales that glinted like metal. Others had fur that changed colors. A few had too many arms or legs to count quickly. All of them looked stronger than him. He was human, just human, and everyone knew humans were the weakest species in the Galactic Coalition. The arena was massive, carved from black stone that seemed to drink in light. Thousands of aliens filled the seats above, watching and waiting. Quan could hear their voices, a mix of growls, clicks, and sounds he had no name for. 3 months ago, he had been on Earth, working at a mining station on the edge of human space. Then the letter came. Out of thousands who applied, only 3 humans had been chosen for the Frontier Corps training program. Quan was one of them. His mother had cried. His father had said nothing, just gripped his shoulder tight. Now Quan was here, light years from home, about to prove that humans belonged among the stars. Terran candidate, step forward. The voice came from Hive Master Zill, a creature that looked like a praying mantis the size of a truck. Its compound eyes reflected the arena lights in 1,000 tiny rainbows. Zill served as the arbiter for the trials. Every species respected the Hive Masters. They were old, older than human civilization, and they never lied. Quan walked to the center of the arena. His boots made soft sounds on the stone. He wore the standard training suit, gray and flexible, with armor plates over his chest and shoulders. It felt too light. Everything here felt too light because the gravity was lower than Earth's. Across from him, something massive stepped into the arena. The crowd roared. Quan felt the sound in his chest like a drum. Thokmar was a Vrelian, a species that looked like Earth's lizards, but stood 8 feet tall and had muscles like steel cables. His scales were deep red with black markings. His eyes were yellow and slit like a snake's. When he opened his mouth, Quan saw rows of sharp teeth. "This will be quick," Thokmar said. His voice was a deep rumble. "Nothing personal, Soft-Worlder." Soft-Worlder. That's what they called humans. Species that evolved on gentle planets with easy gravity and no real predators. Weak species, prey species. Hive Master Zill raised one blade-like arm. "Combat trial begins. Fight with honor. Fight with strength. Show us your worth." The arm dropped. Thokmar charged. Quan didn't try to meet the charge. He couldn't. Thokmar outweighed him by 300 pounds of pure muscle. Instead, Quan dove to the side, rolled, and came up running. The arena floor had scattered obstacles, training equipment left from earlier matches. Quan headed for them. Behind him, Thokmar laughed. "Running already? This is the human courage we've heard about?" The crowd laughed too. Quan felt his face burn, but he kept moving. He grabbed a training pole, light but strong, and spun to face Thokmar. The Vrelian came at him again, claws extended. Quan waited until the last second, then jabbed the pole at Thokmar's eyes. The alien jerked his head back on instinct. In that moment, Quan swung the pole low and swept Thokmar's legs. The big alien crashed down hard. The crowd went silent. Thokmar roared in rage and rolled to his feet. His eyes blazed yellow fire. "You dare!" Quan was already moving. He kicked sand from the arena floor into Thokmar's face, then struck at his knee joint with the pole. Thokmar blocked with one arm, but Quan was faster than he looked. Humans were always faster than they looked. He struck again at the other knee, then at the back of Thokmar's neck when the alien bent forward. Thokmar went down again, gasping. Quan didn't stop. He couldn't afford to stop. He used every trick he knew, every dirty move, every advantage. When Thokmar tried to grab him, Quan twisted away and struck at pressure points. When the Vrelian tried to corner him, Quan used the obstacles to break line of sight. He threw sand. He struck joints and soft spots. He never fought fair because fair meant losing. 5 minutes later, Thokmar lay on his back, breathing hard, with Quan's pole pressed against his throat. "Yield," Quan said quietly. Thokmar's eyes burned with shame and hate, but he tapped the ground with his claw, the signal of surrender. Quan stepped back and dropped the pole. He was breathing hard, too, his muscles shaking from effort. But he had won. A human had defeated a Vrelian warrior. The crowd was silent, not cheering, just silent. Then Hive Master Shil spoke. "Stop!" Quan turned to face the Arbiter. Something was wrong. He could feel it. "This victory is invalid," Zil announced. The words echoed across the arena. "The Terran fought without honor. He used deception. He struck at weak points rather than testing strength against strength. He avoided direct combat. These actions violate the ancient codes of honorable warfare." Quan felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "But I won." "You survived," Sil corrected. "You did not fight. Warriors face each other with courage and strength. They do not hide. They do not throw sand. They do not strike from behind. You fought like prey trying to escape a predator. This is not the way of the Frontier Corps." Around the arena, aliens were nodding. Some were laughing. Quan saw Thokmar stand up, his shame turning to smug satisfaction. "The Terran is disqualified from the trials," Sil continued. "He will be reassigned to waste reclamation duties until his transport home can be arranged." The crowd roared its approval. Quan stood frozen. Waste reclamation, garbage duty, the lowest job on the outpost, and then sent home in disgrace. 2 other humans pushed through the crowd. Yuna Choi was small and quick with sharp eyes. Jiho Kim was bigger, built like a fighter. They were the other 2 humans selected for training. "This isn't fair," Yuna said to Zil. "He won the fight." "He cheated," a voice called from the crowd. "Humans always cheat," another said. "They're too weak to fight properly." Jiho stepped forward, his fists clenched. "Quan used his brain. That's not cheating. That's tactics." "It is dishonor," Zil said simply. "The decision is final. Guards, escort the Terran to his new assignment." 2 armored guards moved toward Quan. He could have resisted. He could have argued. But what was the point? The entire galaxy had already decided. Humans were weak. Humans were prey. Humans didn't belong among warriors. As the guards led him away, Quan looked back once. He saw Yuna and Jiho watching him with helpless anger. He saw Thokmar laughing with other Vrelians. He saw thousands of aliens, and not one looked like they cared about a human's shame. The dream was over. 3 days later, Quan worked alone in the waste processing sector, deep in the outpost's lower levels. The work was hard and smelled terrible. Machines broke down constantly. The air was hot and thick. No one else wanted to work here, which meant no one bothered him. He told himself it was better this way, better than facing the others, better than seeing their looks of pity or contempt. But at night, lying in his small quarters, Quan stared at the ceiling and felt the weight of failure crushing down on him. He had tried to prove humans were strong. Instead, he had proven they were exactly what everyone thought: weak, dishonorable, not worthy. Tomorrow his transport home would arrive. He would leave Valthros Prime and return to Earth. Everyone would know he failed. His parents would smile and say it was okay, but their eyes would show disappointment. Quan closed his eyes and tried not to think about it. He didn't know that in the shadows outside the outpost, something was watching. Something with silver-striped fur and eyes like amber fire. Something that had seen every moment of his fight in the arena. Something that recognized a fellow hunter when it saw one. The maintenance tunnels beneath the outpost were always dark. The lights flickered more than they worked, casting moving shadows that made Quan's tired eyes play tricks on him. He pushed a cart full of broken equipment parts, heading toward the recycling station. His shift wouldn't end for another 4 hours. It had been a week since his disqualification. His transport home had been delayed. Some administrative problem, they said. So Quan worked in the waste sectors and tried to avoid everyone. He turned a corner and stopped. One of the tunnel lights was out completely. The darkness ahead was total, like a wall. Quan had walked this route 100 times, but something felt different tonight. The air was too still, too quiet. His hand moved to the tool belt at his waist. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. "The prey senses danger," a voice said from the darkness. "Good instincts." Quan's heart hammered. The voice was deep and rough, with an accent he didn't recognize. He couldn't see who spoke. "Who's there?" Quan called out. "Someone who watched you fight," the voice answered. "Someone who disagreed with the Arbiter's judgment." A shape moved in the darkness. Quan's eyes adjusted slowly. He saw a figure standing in the shadows where no one should be. Tall, maybe 7 feet, moving with a grace that seemed impossible for something that size. Then the figure stepped into the weak light from behind Quan. Quan forgot to breathe. The creature before him was like nothing he had ever seen outside of Coalition databases. Fur covered its body, silver with black stripes that made it hard to focus on. The face was feline but not quite, with a short muzzle and ears that moved independently. Its eyes glowed amber in the dim light, claws as long as Quan's fingers extended from its hands. Krell Nath, one of the apex predator species. Born hunters who could move through any terrain without sound, who could track prey across solar systems, who were feared by every species in the galaxy. "You're Vorak," Quan whispered. The name had been spoken in frightened tones around the outpost for days. 3 security officers had vanished. Equipment disappeared. Strange tracks appeared in impossible places. The Krell Nath tilted its head. "My reputation reaches even the waste sectors. I am honored." "What do you want?" Quan kept his hand on his tool belt, but knew it was useless. If Vorak wanted him dead, he would already be dead. "I want to know why you held back," Vorak said. He moved closer, and Quan forced himself not to step back. "In the arena, against the Vrelian, you could have killed him. I saw 3 opportunities, clean strikes to the throat, to the temple, to the spine. But you didn't take them." "Why?" Quan blinked. "It was a training fight, not a death match." "Exactly." Vorak's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "You fought to win, not to kill. You used your mind, your speed, your understanding of weak points and leverage. You fought like a hunter, not a warrior, and they punished you for it. They said I fought without honor." Vorak made a sound that might have been a laugh or a growl. "Honor. They speak of honor while sitting safely in their seats. Real honor is survival. Real honor is completing the hunt. Everything else is ceremony for those who never face real danger." Quan didn't know what to say to that. He just stared at the massive predator before him. "I've been watching you since you arrived," Vorak continued. "The way you move, the way you think. Humans are interesting. Your species is young and weak by galactic standards, yet you spread across your solar system in a few generations. You survive in environments that would kill most species. You adapt. You overcome. You refuse to quit even when logic says you should." That didn't help me in the arena. Because the arena is a game with rules. Life has no rules. Only survival and death. Vorak moved closer until he was only a few feet away. This close, Quan could smell him, like earth and rain and something wild. "I came to this outpost hunting someone. A criminal. Dangerous. He hides among the station personnel and I cannot find him alone. I need help from someone who thinks differently, someone who doesn't fight like every other species in the galaxy." "You need help? From me?" Quan couldn't believe it. "I'm human. Weak. Dishonorable. Remember? You're a hunter who doesn't know he's a hunter yet." Vorak said, "and I need a hunter, not a warrior. So I offer you a choice. Stay here pushing garbage until your ship arrives, or come with me. Help me hunt. Learn what your species really is." Quan thought about his small quarters, about the pitying looks from Yuna and Jiho, about returning to Earth as a failure, about spending the rest of his life wondering what he could have been. "What are we hunting?" Vorak's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing far too many teeth. "Something that has killed 15 people across 4 worlds, an Arachnix assassin named Silkreth. He came to this outpost to eliminate witnesses to a weapons smuggling operation. He's already killed 3 security officers. More will die unless we stop him." "The Coalition security forces?" "Think like warriors," Vorak interrupted. "Predictable. Direct. Silkreth kills them easily. But you don't think like them. You think like prey trying to survive. That makes you dangerous in ways they don't understand." Quan looked down at his hands. They were dirty from his work, covered in grease and grime. Not the hands of a warrior, but maybe, just maybe, the hands of a hunter. "How do we start?" "We start by leaving this place, tonight. I have a camp in the wilderness beyond the outpost perimeter. Silkareth's trail leads there. We'll track him, learn his patterns, and when the time is right, we'll hunt him. I'm supposed to be on duty for 4 more hours. Vorak tilted his head. "Do you care?" Quan thought about it. Did he care about the job they gave him as punishment? Did he care about the rules of people who called him dishonorable? "No," he said. "I don't care." "Good. Follow me. Stay close. Stay quiet. Can you do that?" "Yes." Vorak turned and moved into the darkness. Quan followed, leaving his cart of broken equipment behind. They moved through the maintenance tunnels for what felt like hours. Vorak led them through passages Quan didn't know existed, through access shafts and ventilation systems. Several times they stopped while Vorak listened, his ears swiveling. Once they froze completely while a security patrol passed nearby. Quan held his breath, but the patrol never noticed them. Finally, they emerged into the open air beyond the outpost walls. The night was cold and clear. 2 moons hung in the sky, casting silver light across the landscape. Rocky hills stretched away in all directions, covered in tough vegetation that swayed in the wind. Vorak ran, and Quan ran after him. The Krelnath moved like water, flowing over obstacles without seeming to think about them. Quan struggled to keep up. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he didn't stop. He refused to stop. After an hour, Vorak finally slowed. They stood on a ridge overlooking a small valley. Below, Quan saw a fire flickering between rocks. "My camp," Vorak said. "You'll sleep here tonight. Tomorrow your training begins." "Training for what?" Vorak looked at him with those amber eyes. "Training to survive, training to hunt, training to become what your species has always been, whether the galaxy recognizes it or not." They descended to the camp. Vorak's supplies were minimal. A bedroll, some dried food, weapons that looked designed for his clawed hands. He gave Quan a blanket and pointed to a spot near the fire. "Rest. You'll need your strength." Quan wrapped himself in the blanket and lay down. His body hurt everywhere. His mind spun with questions. But beneath the confusion and exhaustion, he felt something he hadn't felt since before the arena. He felt purpose. Above them, stars filled the sky. More stars than Earth ever saw through its polluted atmosphere. Somewhere among them was home. But Quan didn't think about home. He thought about tomorrow, about learning to hunt from the galaxy's deadliest predator, about maybe finally discovering what it meant to be human among the stars. As sleep took him, he heard Vorak moving around the camp, checking their perimeter. The sound was oddly comforting, like having a guardian, or a brother. The thought surprised him. But as Quan drifted off, he smiled. Quan woke to pain. Every muscle in his body screamed. His legs felt like they were filled with broken glass. His back was stiff as wood. He groaned and tried to sit up. Good. You're awake. We've already lost 2 hours of daylight. Vorak stood at the edge of camp, looking out over the valley. He didn't turn to face Quan. The Krell Nath seemed completely fresh, as if he hadn't spent the night sleeping on bare ground. Quan forced himself to stand. His body protested with every movement. What time is it? Time to hunt. Vorak finally turned. He held something in his clawed hands. But first, you need better tools. The outpost gave you garbage. I give you these. He tossed something to Quan. 2 knives, each about 8 inches long. The blades were dark metal that seemed to drink in light. The handles fit perfectly in Quan's hands. Made by Krell Nath craftsmen, Vorak said. They'll cut through most armor. Keep them sharp. Keep them clean. They may save your life. Quan attached the knife sheaths to his belt. The weight felt right. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Now comes the hard part. Vorak pointed to the hills beyond camp. Silkarith passed through this area 3 days ago. His trail is cold but not dead. We'll track him. I'll teach you how. Pay attention. Your life depends on what you learn. They set out as the first moon set. Vorak moved slowly now, deliberately. He pointed out signs Quan would never have noticed. A broken twig that bent the wrong way, disturbed rocks that someone had stepped on. Scratches on bark where someone passed too close. Tracking is reading a story, Vorak explained. The land tells you what happened. You just have to know the language. See here. He pointed to the ground. This print, 4 days old. Arachnics. 8 legs. Moving fast. Running from something or toward something. Quan squinted at the dirt. He could barely see anything. How do you know it's 4 days old? The edges, the way the dirt has settled, the moisture content. But more than that, I know because I feel it. That comes with time and practice. They followed the trail for hours. Quan's body hurt less as he warmed up, but his head hurt more from concentrating so hard. Vorak never stopped teaching. He showed Quan how to move quietly over gravel, how to test the wind direction, how to use shadows and terrain to hide. In the arena, they wanted you to fight fair, Vorak said. But the galaxy isn't fair. Predators don't fight fair. They use every advantage: speed, strength, stealth, intelligence. The prey that forgets this dies. The predator that fights with honor dies hungry. The Coalition says, the Coalition is soft, Vorak interrupted. They haven't known real war in 3 generations. They play at combat in arenas. They make rules about honor. Meanwhile, in the border regions, real hunters do real work. We keep them safe while they mock us for being uncivilized. They stopped for a brief meal. Dried meat that tasted like nothing Quan had ever eaten. It was tough and gamey, but filled his empty stomach. Why did you become a hunter? Quan asked. Vorak was quiet for a long moment. My father was a hunter. His father before him. It's what we are. What we've always been. But I'll tell you a secret, young Terran. Being born a predator doesn't make you a good hunter. You must learn. You must practice. You must fail and survive your failures. Even among Krell Nath, most are not true hunters. They're just big and strong and think that's enough. Is it enough? If it was, you wouldn't have defeated that Vrelian. Vorak stood, brushing crumbs from his fur. Come. Silkarith's trail turns east. We're getting closer. The land grew rougher. They climbed through narrow passes between rocks. Vorak pointed out more signs, discarded food wrappers, a piece of torn cloth, a place where someone had rested. He's careless, Vorak said. That's good for us, but don't underestimate him. Careless doesn't mean harmless. Arachnic's assassins are chosen for their speed and poison. Silkarith has survived 15 hunts. He's killed trained warriors. How do we beat him? We don't beat him like warriors. We hunt him like prey. We learn his habits, his patterns, his fears. Then we use them against him. As the day wore on, Quan began to see what Vorak meant. The signs became clearer. He started noticing broken stems, disturbed earth. The story written in the land. It felt like waking up from a dream, like learning to see for the first time. Late in the afternoon, Vorak suddenly dropped flat. Quan did the same without thinking. They lay on their stomachs behind a low ridge. "There," Vorak whispered. He pointed down into a ravine. Silkreth's men, 2 of them, mercenaries, watching the path. Quan looked carefully. At first he saw nothing. Then movement caught his eye. 2 figures, heavily armed, positioned behind rocks. They were watching the trail below. "Why would Silkreth leave guards?" Quan whispered back. "Because he's expecting pursuit. The Coalition must have finally gotten smart, but they'll come up that trail like fools. Direct, predictable, and these guards will kill them." "What do we do?" Vorak smiled, showing all his teeth. "We teach you to hunt. Can you get behind that one on the left without being seen?" Quan studied the terrain. The ravine had collapsed sides, lots of loose rock. But there was a path, if he was careful, if he was quiet, if he remembered everything Vorak had taught him. "Yes," he said. "Good. I'll take the right. Wait for my signal. When you hear me call like a rock bird, you move, fast and silent. Strike from behind. Go for the neck or spine. No hesitation. Hesitation gets you killed." "Understand?" Quan's mouth was dry. These weren't training dummies. These were real enemies who would kill him without thought. His hand touched one of his new knives. "I understand." "Then move. Stay low. Use the rocks. Don't think about being seen. Know you won't be seen." Quan crawled backward from the ridge, then worked his way around. His heart pounded, but his hands stayed steady. He moved from rock to rock, tested each step before putting his weight down. Used shadows, controlled his breathing. It took 20 minutes to get into position. The mercenary below him never moved, never suspected. Quan could see him clearly now. Some kind of reptilian species, scaled and armed with an energy weapon. Then he heard it. A sound like a bird call, perfect and natural. Quan moved. He slid down from the rocks, landed behind the mercenary. The alien started to turn, but Quan was already striking. The knife went into the base of the skull, exactly where Vorak had taught him. The mercenary jerked once and went still. Quan pulled his knife free, his hands shaking. Across the ravine, Vorak stood over the other guard. He nodded approval at Quan. They dragged the bodies out of sight. Quan's hands were covered in blood. He wanted to be sick, but he forced the feeling down. "Your first kill," Vorak said quietly. "It never gets easy. If it does, you've lost something important. But you did well. Clean. Quick. No suffering." "I killed someone." "You survived someone who would have killed you. And you did it to protect others. Silkreth's men would have killed Coalition soldiers. Maybe killed civilians. You stopped that." Quan looked at his bloody hands. "Is this what being a hunter means?" "Sometimes. But being a hunter also means protecting. It means using violence so others don't have to. It means being willing to do hard things." Vorak put a hand on Quan's shoulder. The claws rested there gently. "You have the instinct, the intelligence, the courage. But you doubted yourself because others said you were weak. Let me tell you something about humans." Quan looked up at the massive predator. "Your species hunted prey across continents on your homeworld. For days. For weeks. You ran them down until they collapsed from exhaustion. Your ancestors were persistent hunters. The prey was faster, stronger, but you never stopped. That's in your blood, in your DNA. The galaxy calls you weak because you don't have claws or armor or natural weapons. But you have something better. You have the ability to never quit, to adapt, to overcome. The Coalition doesn't see it that way. The Coalition is blind, but I see it, and soon others will too. A sound echoed across the ravine. Voices. Movement. Vorak's ears swiveled. Silkreth's main camp. Close. Very close. He looked at Quan. Are you ready for this? Quan wiped his knives clean and sheathed them. His hands had stopped shaking. His mind was clear. Yes. Good. Because this is where it gets dangerous. They moved toward the sounds. Quan followed Vorak, matching his steps, becoming his shadow. The training continued even as they hunted. Every movement a lesson, every breath a practice. And deep inside, Quan felt something change. The shame from the arena was fading. The fear was still there, but it didn't control him anymore. He was learning what he really was. Not a warrior. A hunter. Just like Vorak said. They found Silkreth's camp just before sunset. It was hidden in a dead-end canyon, protected on 3 sides by steep walls. 5 mercenaries stood guard around a cluster of equipment and shelters. In the center, near a portable computer terminal, stood the Arachnix himself. Quan had seen Arachnix before, but never up close. Silkreth looked like an enormous spider that had learned to stand upright. 8 legs, though the front 2 could be used like arms. His body was covered in dark chitin that shone like oil. Multiple eyes dotted his head, giving him vision in all directions. This is bad, Vorak whispered. They were hidden on the canyon rim, watching from above. Too many guards. Too much open space. They'll see us coming. What about after dark? Arachnics see in the dark better than I do, and Silkreth will expect a night attack. Vorak's tail switched back and forth, a sign of frustration Quan had learned. We need a different approach. Quan studied the camp layout. The guards were positioned well. The equipment created a maze that could be easily defended. There was only one entrance to the canyon. Any direct assault would be suicide. But something else caught his attention. Near the back of the canyon, partially hidden by tarps, sat several large containers. They had warning symbols on them. What are those containers? Quan asked. Vorak squinted. Fuel cells, high energy, probably stolen coalition military equipment. That's what they're smuggling. An idea formed in Quan's mind. Crazy, dangerous, exactly the kind of thing the coalition would call dishonorable. Can you make a rock slide? He asked. Block the canyon entrance? Vorak looked at him. Yes. Why? Because we're not going to fight them. We're going to trap them, then give them a choice. Quan explained his plan. As he talked, Vorak's expression changed from doubt to interest to something that might have been pride. It's risky, Vorak said when Quan finished. If the timing is wrong, we'll die. I know. But you said being a hunter means using every advantage. Well, they have weapons and numbers. We have brains and surprise. Vorak was quiet for a moment. Then he made that sound that might have been a laugh. You learn fast, young Terran. Very well. We'll try your plan. But first, there's something I must tell you. Something you should know before we risk our lives together. They moved back from the canyon rim to a safer position. Vorak settled on a flat rock and gestured for Quan to sit. Years ago, Vorak began, I was hunting a war criminal in the border territories. The hunt went wrong. I was ambushed, badly wounded, poison in my blood. My ship crashed on a frozen moon. I should have died there. Quan listened without interrupting. A Terran medical ship found me. They had no reason to help. Krelnath weren't part of the coalition then. We were considered dangerous, pirates, monsters. But one of your people, a medic named Day, treated my wounds, removed the poison, gave me supplies and didn't ask for payment. Why are you telling me this? Because I asked him the same question. Why help me? We weren't allies. His superiors would be angry if they knew, and he just smiled and said, because you needed help. As if it was the simplest thing in the world. Vorak looked out toward the sunset. His amber eyes reflected the red light. That confused me for years. In Krelnath culture, you help family, you help pack. You don't help strangers, especially potential enemies. But I watched your species after that, studied you, and I realized something. Humans help because they see themselves in others. You have empathy. It makes you do illogical things, kind things, things that should make you weak but somehow make you strong. I don't understand what this has to do with the hunt. Everything. Vorak turned to face him directly. Among my people, we have a ritual, a blood bond. It makes two hunters into brothers, pack, family. I've never offered this to anyone outside my species, but I offer it to you now. Quan's breath caught. Why? Because you remind me of that medic. You fight to survive, yes, but also to prove something to yourself, to prove humans have worth. You don't fight for glory or pride. You fight because you believe in something bigger than yourself. That's rare. That's precious. Vorak extended his right hand, palm up. With his left hand, he drew one claw across his palm. Blood welled up, dark and thick. If you accept, we share blood. Your enemies become my enemies. Your honor becomes my honor. Your family becomes my family. Among Krelnath, this bond cannot be broken. Not by distance, not by time, not by death. Quan stared at the offered hand. This was huge, bigger than anything he had imagined. A Krelnath blood brother. The implications were enormous. I'm just human, Quan said quietly. Weak, dishonorable. Remember? You are a hunter who saved my life today by watching my back. A hunter who learned in days what takes others years. A hunter who thinks like prey and strikes like predator. You are exactly what humans have always been. Survivors, adapters, fighters who refuse to quit. Quan pulled out one of his knives. He cut his own palm, shallow but enough to bleed. He pressed his hand against Vorak's. Brothers, Vorak said in his own language. Then, in common speech, by blood and bone, by hunt and home, by claw and blade, we are pack. Brothers, Quan repeated. Vorak gripped his hand tight. The claws pressed into his skin but didn't break it. Quan felt something shift in that moment. A connection. A bond that went deeper than words. When they released hands, Vorak looked different somehow. His expression was softer, more open. Now, Vorak said, let's go save your honor and kill some smugglers. They worked through the night preparing. Vorak moved huge boulders into position on the canyon walls. Quan scouted the area, planning their escape route. They gathered brush and dry wood. They prepared weapons. At dawn, they were ready. Quan climbed down into the canyon through a crack in the wall, moving like a shadow. He reached the fuel containers without being seen. His hands shook slightly as he worked, attaching a remote detonator Vorak had provided. One of the mercenaries walked nearby. Quan froze, barely breathing. The guard passed without noticing him. Minutes later, Quan was back on the canyon rim, his heart pounding. Done, he whispered to Vorak. Then it's time. Get ready to run. Vorak howled. Not a human sound. A hunting cry that echoed off the canyon walls and made Quan's spine tingle. Down below, the guards jumped to alert. Silkrith emerged from his shelter, all 8 legs moving in agitation. Up there! Someone shouted. Vorak triggered the rock slide. Tons of stone crashed down, sealing the canyon entrance completely. Dust filled the air. The mercenaries opened fire, but Vorak was already moving. Quan right behind him. They ran along the canyon rim to a new position. Vorak triggered another small slide, this one sending rocks down near the guards, making them scatter. Silkrith! Vorak's voice boomed across the canyon. I am Vorak of the Krelnath. You are trapped. Your entrance is sealed. Your communications are jammed. You have one choice. Surrender, or I detonate the fuel cells and turn this canyon into a crater. Silence fell over the camp. Quan watched through the scope Vorak had given him. He could see Silkareth's many eyes looking around, calculating. "You're bluffing," Silkareth called back. His voice was like breaking glass. "You wouldn't destroy the evidence." Quan pressed the detonator control. A small explosion erupted from one container, sending a gout of flame into the air. Not enough to trigger the others, but enough to show they could. "That was a warning," Vorak called. "The next one takes you all. Surrender now or die." Quan saw Silkareth's legs moving. The Arachnix was communicating with his mercenaries in some silent way. 3 of them suddenly broke from cover, trying to climb the canyon walls. "Fire on them," Vorak said. Quan aimed his borrowed rifle and fired, not to kill but to warn. Shots peppered the wall near the climbing mercenaries. They dropped back down. "Last chance," Vorak called. "I count to 10. Then I push the button. 1, 2, 3. Wait!" Silkareth's voice cracked. "Wait! How do we know you'll let us live if we surrender? 4. You have my word as a Krell Nath hunter. 5. And the word of a Terran," Quan called out, surprising himself. "Surrender and face trial. Die if you don't. Choose now. 6. 7. Silkareth's legs collapsed inward, a gesture of submission. "We surrender. Don't detonate." It took 2 hours to secure the prisoners. Vorak called coalition forces with a captured communicator. By midday, the canyon was filled with armed soldiers, and Silkareth and his mercenaries were in restraints. Quan stood with Vorak as the coalition officials cataloged the evidence. He felt exhausted, but good. They had done it. Against the odds, they had hunted and captured one of the galaxy's most wanted criminals, and he had gained a brother. Vorak's hand rested on his shoulder. "Well done, Hunter. Well done, brother." Quan smiled, and for the first time since the arena, he felt truly proud. The coalition officials didn't know what to do with Quan and Vorak at first. They tried to separate them for debriefing. Vorak simply walked through their security guards as if they weren't there, staying at Quan's side. After the 3rd attempt, they gave up and questioned them together. Commander Ralk, a Vrelian with blue scales, led the investigation. He kept looking between Quan and Vorak with confused eyes. "Let me understand this," Ralk said, reading from a datapad. "You, a disqualified human candidate, and you, an independent Krell Nath hunter, tracked and captured Silkareth and his entire operation, alone, without authorization, without backup." "Yes," Vorak said simply. "That's incredibly reckless. You could have been killed. You could have destroyed valuable evidence. We could have sat on our hands while Silkareth killed more people," Quan interrupted. "We didn't. We acted. We won." Ralk's scales flushed darker with anger. "You don't speak to me that way, failed candidate." "He speaks to you as my brother," Vorak said. His voice went quiet and dangerous. "Show respect, or I will take offense." The room went very still. Everyone knew what happened when someone offended a Krellnath hunter. Ralk's scales went pale. "My apologies," he said stiffly. "I meant no disrespect to your brother." "Good. Then we are done here. The criminal is captured. The evidence is secured. We will accept our payment and leave." "Payment? You weren't hired." "Coalition law states that independent hunters who capture wanted criminals are entitled to the posted bounty. Silkareth's bounty is 50,000 credits. We'll take it in standard currency." Ralk looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find grounds. Everything Vorak said was technically correct. "This will take time to process. Where will you be?" "Returning to the outpost. We have business there." They left before anyone could stop them. Outside, the twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Quan felt lighter than he had in weeks. "That was satisfying," Quan said. "The look on his face when I called you brother? Yes, very satisfying." Vorak's tail swished with amusement. But our real business comes tomorrow, at the outpost, in front of everyone. What business? Vorak's eyes gleamed. Restoring your honor. Properly. They walked back to the outpost as night fell. Guards at the gate tried to stop them. Vorak simply walked past. The guards decided not to push the issue. Word of their arrival spread quickly. By the time they reached the residential sectors, aliens were staring at them from doorways and windows. Quan saw Yuna and Jiho in the crowd. Yuna's eyes went wide. Jiho's mouth hung open. They went to Quan's old quarters in the waste sector. No one had cleaned it out yet. Quan gathered his few belongings while Vorak waited outside, too large to fit through the door. Tomorrow, Vorak said when Quan emerged, we face the Arbiter Council. Be ready. And Quan, remember what you are, not what they told you to be. What you truly are. Quan nodded. I'll remember. That night, he couldn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened. 2 weeks ago, he was a disgraced candidate cleaning garbage. Now he was a hunter, a blood brother to a Krellnath, a tracker of criminals. Everything had changed. Morning came with a summons. The Arbiter Council wanted to see them. Immediately. The council chamber was the same place where Quan had been disqualified, the same seats filled with the same alien species, the same hive master Zil presiding over everything with his compound eyes. But Quan walked in differently this time. His back was straight. His head was high. He wore his knives openly on his belt, and beside him walked Vorak, 7 feet of predatory grace and barely contained violence. The whispers started immediately. Order, Zil said, his voice cutting through the noise. This council is in session. Vorak of the Krellnath, you requested this audience. State your business. Vorak stepped forward. I come to discuss honor. An interesting topic from one who hunts for money. I hunt because I am good at it, because it protects those who cannot protect themselves, because it removes dangerous criminals from the galaxy. Is that dishonorable? Zil's insect eyes reflected light in strange patterns. Your work is necessary but not dignified. You do not follow the codes. No, I follow results, like this. Vorak gestured, and several data pads were distributed to the council members. Silkareth, wanted for 15 murders and large-scale weapon smuggling, captured 2 days ago, along with all his associates and complete evidence of his crimes. The council members studied the data pads. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Impressive, Zil admitted. Though we had troops preparing an operation, your troops would have failed, Vorak interrupted. Silkareth was expecting warriors. Direct assault, predictable tactics. He would have killed half your force and escaped with the other half. I know because I've hunted Arachnix assassins before. Then it is fortunate you captured him first. I didn't capture him alone. Vorak turned and put his hand on Quan's shoulder. My brother captured him with me. Equal partners. Equal hunters. The chamber exploded with noise, aliens shouting in dozens of languages. Zil raised his blade arms for silence. Your brother! This human! The one we disqualified for fighting without honor! The same. And I come now to challenge that judgment. This council called Quan dishonorable because he used tactics, because he adapted, because he fought smart rather than strong. I say you were wrong. The ancient codes mean nothing. Vorak's voice rang out, silencing everyone. Nothing. You sit here in safety, judging others by codes written thousands of years ago. You call adaptation dishonor. You call intelligence cowardice. You call survival tactics shameful. But where were you when Silkareth was killing? Where were your honorable warriors? They were here, training in arenas, playing at combat while real threats walked free. You dare... I dare because I am Krellnath. We answer to no council. We live by one law, survive and protect. And I tell you now, Quan Park is one of the finest hunters I have ever worked with. He thinks like prey and strikes like predator. He adapts in seconds. He sees opportunities others miss. He never quits, even when logic says he should. Vorak paused, looking around the chamber. Every eye was on him. This human defeated a Vrelian warrior in fair combat. You disqualified him. Then he helped hunt down and capture a dangerous criminal your forces couldn't touch. If this is dishonor, then honor is worthless. If this is weakness, then strength is meaningless. I say you judged wrong. I say you owe him apology. The silence was complete. Zill's eyes focused on Quan, then on Vorak. Then back to Quan. The Krellnath are not part of our coalition, Zill said slowly. Your judgment carries no official weight. But it carries real weight, Vorak countered. Every species here knows my people, knows what we can do, and I declare before you all that Quan Park is my blood brother. By our oldest laws, any insult to him is insult to me. Any attack on him is attack on me. Any species that harms him will face the full response of the Krellnath. Do you understand? The threat was clear and devastating. The Krellnath were few in number, but they were feared throughout the galaxy. No one wanted them as enemies. Zill was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. This council may have been hasty in its judgment. The ancient codes were written for different times. Perhaps they require reinterpretation for a changing galaxy. Perhaps they require abandonment, Vorak said flatly. That is not for this council to decide alone. But we can acknowledge that Terran Park's combat methods, while unconventional, were effective, and his assistance in capturing Silkareth is commendable. More than commendable, someone said from the crowd. Quan turned and saw Thokmar, the Vrelian he had defeated, standing and speaking. He beat me fairly. I was too proud to admit it then, but I admit it now. He was better, smarter, and I learned nothing from that arena match. He learned everything. Other voices joined in. Not all supportive, but enough. The tide was shifting. Zill raised his blade arms again. Very well. This council officially reinstates Quan Park as a candidate for the Frontier Corps, with full honors. His previous disqualification is expunged from all records. No, Quan said. Everyone turned to look at him. He stepped forward, standing beside Vorak. Thank you, but I decline. Shocked silence. You decline? Why? Zill asked. Because I learned something these past weeks. I learned what I really am. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a warrior who follows codes. I'm a hunter. And I already have a place, with my brother, as an independent hunter. That's where I belong. Zill tilted his head, a gesture of confusion. You would give up a prestigious position for a life of uncertainty and danger? I would give up comfort and safety to actually make a difference. To hunt real threats. To protect people who need protecting. Not to train in arenas and follow ancient codes that don't matter anymore. Vorak's hand squeezed Quan's shoulder. A gesture of pride and support. Very well, Zill said. The position remains open should you change your mind. You are dismissed. As they left the chamber, Quan felt like a weight had lifted from his chest. Around him, aliens watched with new expressions. Not contempt, not pity, respect, fear, curiosity. Yuna and Jiho caught up with them outside. That was incredible, Yuna said. Her eyes were bright with excitement. You stood up to the entire council. Vorak did most of the standing, Quan said. You stood where it mattered, Jiho said. He looked at Quan differently now. You changed everything. You know that, right? Everyone's talking about it. About you. About how humans don't have to follow their rules. That wasn't the point. Maybe not, but it's the result. Jiho extended his hand. Good luck out there, Hunter. Quan shook it. Then Yuna hugged him quickly. Don't die doing something stupid, she said. I'll try not to. They walked away toward their own training. Quan watched them go, feeling oddly nostalgic for a life he'd barely lived. Second thoughts? Vorak asked. No, just saying goodbye to who I thought I'd be. Good, because our ship leaves in 2 hours. We have a new contract, 3 systems away. Dangerous, possibly deadly, definitely interesting. Quan smiled. Perfect, let's go. They walked through the outpost one last time. Quan saw aliens watching them, whispering. He saw young recruits looking at him with new eyes. He saw trainers reconsidering their lessons. Vorak was right. Things were changing, not everywhere, not all at once. But somewhere, young warriors were questioning the old codes. Somewhere, trainers were teaching adaptability alongside strength. Somewhere, the galaxy was learning that maybe honor wasn't about following rules. Maybe honor was about doing what needed to be done, about protecting others, about survival and sacrifice and never giving up. Their ship was small but fast, designed for 2 hunters working alone. Quan stowed his gear in the passenger section. Vorak took the pilot seat. Ready? Vorak asked. Quan strapped in. Through the viewport, he could see Valthros Prime falling away, the planet where he had failed, the planet where he had learned what he really was. Ready, brother? Vorak engaged the engines. They jumped to hyperspace, leaving the outpost behind. In the cargo hold, their weapons waited, their equipment, their tools of the trade. Quan Park, human hunter, looked at his clawed hands. The blood brother to a Krell Nath, the disgraced candidate who became something better. The galaxy was huge, dangerous, full of threats and criminals and people who needed protecting. And somewhere out there, another hunt waited. Quan smiled and began sharpening his knives. The real work was just beginning.